guys, welcome to my kitchen. I'm Kayla and today I'm going to show you how to can some meat in some pint jars. So what we're going to start with today, I've got some top round steak, some diced pork, I've got my jars. You can use pints or quarts, whatever you want to do, a funnel, some rings, some lids, a cutting board, just be able to cut it up, and my pressure canner. If you have a stovetop canner, you can use it. If you have an electric canner, you can use that as well. So let's get started. So I've just got my steaks out, washed them up. I'm just kind of cutting them up into little bite-sized pieces, like you would stew meat size. And I'm just gonna add them to my jars, just to get those filled up. You want to fill it up to the neck of the ring or a 1-inch headspace. So we'll get those filled up and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so I've got my stew meat in my jar. I'm going to start working on this diced pork. Now you could do several different things with diced pork. Luckily, it's already done for you. You just literally put it in the jar. Piece of cake, easy work for a busy mom. So I'm just going to fill these up until that neckline, that 1-inch mark. Now you could do a few things. You could leave it plain. You could always add some barbecue sauce to it, have some barbecue pork. I'm not really sure what I want to do with it once it actually gets canned up. So I can always add something later whenever I do open it up and get ready to cook. Put dinner together. Always got options there. So I'm just going to keep adding this pork the next step, okay? Okay, so I've got the pork in the jars. So now we'll just have the 4 jars. And what we're going to do is take a wet paper towel with water. You can use vinegar. Some people do. I just prefer to use water. And we're just going to clean around these rims because sometimes they get oil and grease from the meat on there, or anything from the actual product on there. So we're just gonna give it a nice clean. Helps to keep that seal intact. We're gonna take our lids, pop them on. I will say that there are a lot of brands of lids. I would caution against using things that, if the price just seems too good to be true, and there's no real label or anything indicated, typically those don't do so hot, but that's whatever you want to take a risk for. We're going to put our rings on, finger tight. You don't want to crank down on it, so ideally we want the air to escape so that we can form that vacuum onto the jar. Now your rings don't have to be pretty rings. You don't have to use brand new rings every time. They can look kind of dingy and worn. They don't have to look like one canner I follow. She says they don't have to look like an engagement ring. They just have to work. And so it's very true. All you want to do is put it on finger tight. So these are ready to go in the canner. Now since we had cold meat out of the fridge, we've got it in a cold jar. We didn't add any water to it. Side note, since we're using raw meat, we're not going to add any liquid to this. This is going to cook down and produce its own juices. So we don't want to add anything extra to cause any siphoning or any liquid to come out of the jar while it's in the canning process. So cold meat, cold jar, in a cold canner, not on heat, with cold water inside. That way it can all come up to temperature at one time. If you decided to take a cold jar and stick it in water that you've had heated or boiling, you're gonna crack your jar. We definitely don't wanna do that because then we lose product. That's a waste of money, nobody wants to do that. So let's get these in the canner and then we'll get started. Now I will say, now that we've got those loaded, we're not going to just do those 4. That would be an entirely huge waste of time and effort in the canner. You want to run the canner as full as you can to maximize the use out of it. So we're going to get a few more things together and then pop it all in the canner and run it in one load. All right, so we're at 11 pounds of pressure. I started my timer. Just gonna start working with my control to make sure that I keep the heat up, but not too high up. And we'll just sit here and wait. So I took the lid off, making sure that when we took it off, we angled it away from our face because we don't want any of that steam to get in there and hurt us and burn us. So let's see what these meats look like. Oh, now this is that pork. You remember we didn't put any liquid in there, and you see that there's obviously liquid because all those juices inside the meat have now come out as it's cooked. Now that bubbling, it's going to continue to bubble until it calms down. It's trying to get all that air out so that it can create a good seal. So whenever we take it out, we're going to keep it nice and straight. When we put it down on the towel, nice and straight so that nothing tips over or moves around and can affect that seal. There's that other pork. See how full it is? You can kind of start to tell on the top it's not bubbled up like it was before. Well, these I've already pretty much sealed from what I can tell. Let's see. All right. Here's that stew meat. Now, yes, it is okay if that meat is above the liquid line. That's totally okay. You can kind of tip it upside down and keep it wet every once in a while, or you can leave it. Either way, it will be a little bit different color than what's down in the liquid after a while, but it's still edible. Still tastes exactly the same. And then here's that last one. You can kind of see a little rim of fat on there. That's okay. Typically you try and cut off as much fat as you can because fat does go rancid quicker than actual meat will. But it's okay. That's not a whole lot of fat. It'll be fine. All right, so we'll let this meat cool down for 24 hours, and then we'll check the seals on them. They look like they've already sealed, but just to make sure, we'll let everything calm down and then recheck it. If it doesn't seal correctly, then we can go back and reprocess it for the 75 minutes, just like we did this first time. Or you can just go ahead and eat it, pop in the fridge, fix it for dinner that day or whatever. It's still edible. It's still good for 24 hours. But yeah, so we'll see how they turn out. So after 24 hours, we want to take our rings off and check to see if our jars have sealed. So we'll just pick them up by the lid. If it stays on there, it's not going anywhere. The center is down, it's not popping, you don't hear any sound coming through, then they are sealed. So from here, you'll just pop them in the sink with some hot and soapy water, get them nice and washed down, get any of the grease and product or whatever that might have come siphoning out of there, get that off there because you don't want that hanging out on your shelf. And then just store it just like this on your shelf. Don't put the ring back on because we want to be able to make sure that these stay sealed. We won't be able to know if we leave that ring on. Also label whatever you've got. That way in like a month or two when you're pulling it off the shelf and you're like, what did I make? What is this? You'll know what it is.